Algebra 1, 1-2, Order of Operations. Well, as normal, let's start out with a little vocabulary. When we talk about a power, or exponent or base is the bottom, that would be the 2. This has an exponent of 3, so we have 2 cubed, and the whole thing is called a power, and that's how we handle multiplying multiple numbers, like 2 times 2 times 2 is 2 to the third power. Simplifying means to put it into simplest form. You already knew that. Evaluate means find the value of, or what something is worth. And solve, I think there's a lot of confusion over solve. Solve means find the answer, or isolate a variable on one side of an equation and everything else is on the other side of an equation. You can only solve an equation or inequality, and that has an equal sign, or an inequality sign, like greater than, less than. You cannot solve an expression which doesn't have an equal sign. By the way, that brings up a question. What's the difference between an equation and an expression? 2 things. Equation has an equal sign. Expression does not. The other thing is, you can solve an equation, you cannot solve an expression. Moving on. Order of operations, as you well know by now, is PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. When we talk about the P part, usually people say parentheses, but it's really talking about any grouping symbols. Parentheses, brackets, these little squiggly lines called braces, absolute value bars, or a fraction bar. A plus B, fraction bar, C underneath it, A plus B over C is the same thing as A plus B divided by, that's what the fraction bar means, divided by C. You good with that? Moving on. When we're talking about the exponent, then the exponent, which is the little number raised in the air, only applies to the very thing that it is next to, that is just to the left of the exponent. Like in my first example, it does not apply to the negative, only to the 3. So 3 squared is negative, not 3 times 2, 3 times 3, so therefore it is negative 9. If you have parentheses around the negative, then the negative gets squared too. Then it's negative 3 times itself negative 3, or positive 9, because negative times negative is positive. If you have 2 times 3 squared, remember, that exponent of squared only applies to the 3, not to the 2. So this 2 just stays all by itself. And the 3 is squared or times itself, not times another 2. So you have 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. By the way, you can multiply in any order that you want. I could multiply, once I got this stretched out, I could say 2 times 3 is 6, times 3 is 18. Or I can say 3 squared is 9, times 2 is 18. But I cannot say 2 times 3 is 6, and then square that. Because 6 times 6 would be 36. So that's not right. You good with that? Let's do something else. Multiplication and division. A lot of people have thought that that was multiply first, then divide. Not true. Multiply and divide as they occur left to right. So, I have 12 divided by 2 times 6, and 12 divided by 2 times, times 3. 12 divided by 2 times 3, and 12 divided by 2 times 3. Which one is right? Is my answer 2, or is my answer 18? Well, if you follow the order of operations and you multiply and divide as they occur, left to right, just like we're reading, well, would you do 12 divided by 6, multiplying first? Or would you do 12 divided by 2, which is 6, then times 3? If you said 12 divided by 2 is 6, multiply by 3, answer is 18, you are correct. Multiply and divide as they occur, left to right. Division comes first, then multiplication. Ta-da! Not the first one. How are we doing? Let's do another one. Let's talk about addition and subtraction. That's the weakest operation. By the way, don't subtract. Then you won't have to worry about it as it occurs left to right, because think of all minus signs as -1 times whatever it is. Then just add. Like this. Here's the add rule. If the signs are the same, like 3 plus 4, that's positive 3 plus 4. -3, -4, -3 plus a -4. Remember, don't think of that as subtract. Just keep that negative right with the 4, like -1 times 4, -4, and then just add the two numbers. You're basically adding the opposite. Get it? So anyway, if the signs are the same, positive, positive, negative, negative, negative plus a negative, you add the numbers, 3 plus 4 is 7, keep the sign that you start out with. Positives, positives. Negatives, negatives. Adding negatives, negatives. Always. What if the signs are different? 3 plus a -4, which by the way is exactly the same thing as 3 minus 4, or -3 plus 4. Well, you subtract the two numbers, so I start with the big one and I go 4 minus 3 is 1. Now what do I do? What do I call it, positive or -1? Well, you use the sign of the biggest number. And since 4 is the bigger looking number, up here the sign of the 4 is negative. Sign of the 4 is negative. Sign of the 4 is positive. And that's all there is to that. We'll practice some order of operations in class. It's much easier to just practice it out than to give you 10,000 examples here in the video. So I'll see you in class.